Okay, so this was totally a clickbait title for this video, and probably a lot of you are hoping that I'm about to announce my new Doom WOD, full of amazing new maps, including the secret lost Doom 1 Level 1 that I did back in the day. Hey, John Romero did one, right? Well, usually I really want to please people like you, my fellow fans, but this thing I am not so sure I want to take on. Not to mince words, let me discuss my feelings about it. First off, Doom was, frankly, not as big a deal in my life as it was in the lives of my teammates at id Software. Before I went to id, I'd done a lot of work on role-playing games, board games, and even video games. I assisted on Sid Meier's Civilization. Now, after I left id Software, I went on to the Age of Empires team. Plus, later I created Cthulhu Wars, Planet Apocalypse, and so forth. I'm not trying to play down or minimize Doom. Doom was huge for me. But, so was the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, so was Age of Empires, and Cthulhu Wars. Doom for me was a really big and important game in a series of fairly big and important games. Now, I might be sounding like kind of an egomaniac. That's not the impression I want to leave. All of these games are team efforts, but I did get to be on the team. In other words, when people say, Sandy, go back and do a Doom map, you gotta understand that I also have people asking me to go back and do a Call of Cthulhu adventure or an Age of Empires campaign or more Cthulhu Wars factions. I mean, it's not like people are asking John Romero to go do new Daikatana or Commander Keen levels, right? Second, there is time constraints. Now, back in the day, it took me about 3 weeks of full-time work to finish a Doom level. I actually would work on a level for 6 weeks or so total, but I overlapped 2 or 3 levels at a time. So the total hours I spent on one level was close to 3 weeks, like 120, 150 hours. Now, John Romero's sigil that he just released has 9 new levels, and each is in some ways far more complicated and impressive than the original levels we did back in the day. Now, if I wanted to try to match John, it would probably take me at least 6 months of time, maybe more. And that doesn't even include getting up to speed and using Doom Builder or whatever. I assume that would be at least a few weeks. John's kept up with the new level makers. He's an expert with them. I'm not. Plus, nowadays, I have other responsibilities. I run a board game company. I have employees who depend for their livelihood on my continued publishing board games. Now, it's possible that Sandy Petersen Returns the Doom map pack might have incredible sales, and the royalties on that would more than pay for my time, but it seems to me it's at best a gamble. Plus, if I did one, it would of course be compared to John Romero's sigil. I mean, why wouldn't it? I don't really want to go in competition with John. He's my friend, and I really have no confidence that my levels would be better than his or even as good. The final reason I'm kind of embarrassed about mentioning, but I'll mention it anyway. The fact is, I haven't worked on a first-person shooter map since 2011, back when I was a professor at Southern Methodist University. I did a lot of first-person shooter stuff then, editing and grading students' maps. If we go back to the 90s, when I was at id back in the day, my maps were divisive. I mean, yeah, some people loved the ambushes and tricks and traps and clever little nuggets, but others thought my architecture was visually unappealing. So I'm a little worried about fallout from it. I know a lot of people love my maps, they always have, but there are always those vocal few who live on hatred, and I'm old enough now that I'd simply rather not deal with that element of the online crowd. Here's one, for example, posted recently. Now, I know these guys are trolls and assholes, but why should I open myself up to more grief from swamp dwellers like him? In the end, I'm not sure that the time, the emotional pain, and the loss of focus on my current project is worth it. You may disagree. In fact, probably a lot of you disagree. And to be clear, when I say I don't think it's worth it, maybe it's unlikely, that's not the same as saying I'm not going to do it. But I'm not interested in fighting to do one. Look, if ZeniMax came to me and said, Sandy, do a Doom WOD, and we'll make it worth your company's while, sure, I'd do it. I mean, that'd be handing it to me on a silver platter, right? Let's discuss what else might make me do more Doom levels. Well, I'm 66 years old, but I'm not retired. I'm still actively making games. I'm kind of hoping I'll be able to retire by the time I'm 70 years old. And once I retire, I'll have a lot more free time. I won't feel like I'm leaving my team out to dry if I take a few months to make Doom levels. Now, I doubt you wanted to hear that I might do some Doom stuff in 5 years, but in the end, I thought I'd leave the arguments up to you guys on this topic. Make your case in the comments, comment below. I promise to read all the comments, and I'm willing to be convinced. Like me? Get notifications, subscribe, and of course, buy my stuff. The more money I make on that stuff, the more I can take time off to do Doom levels.